most of what people care about can be thought of as a skill, right? I mean, well-being is a skill. Not suffering unnecessarily is a skill. Regulating, noticing your emotional life and regulating negative emotion is a skill. And so, I have a meditation app, and meditation is a skill. It's a very useful one. And I'm spending a lot of time teaching what's now referred to as mindfulness meditation. And the moment you begin practicing mindfulness, which is just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience. You're not adding anything to your experience. You're just noticing what it's like to be you moment to moment, but in a way that is not reactive. You're not grasping at what's pleasant or pushing what's unpleasant away. You're just, to make this concrete, let's say you have a fear of public speaking, right? So you're about to go out on stage and you feel anxiety. The default state of someone who doesn't want to have that experience is to try to figure, is one, to in advance worry about that experience. The anxiety is kindled just by the mere thought of what you have to do. Then once you feel the butterflies, you are at war with them, right? Your mind contracts around it. Your conversation with yourself is an unhappy one. It's like, why the fuck am I this person who just can't, I see people do this all the time. They're relaxed, I'm unhappy. When am I? And you're talking to yourself. You're not noticing it because the thoughts just come up from behind you as fast as they can, and they seem to be you, right? You're identified with each thought that emerges in consciousness. And most people live their lives as though there's no alternative. We're not given a rule book for how to operate a human mind, right? And there's no place in a normal education where it's even indicated that there's an alternative here. And so we kind of stumble out into adulthood, more or less assuming that we'll always have the minds we have, and that really there's, the only thing we can do to really upgrade our firmware is to just add new content. We can read books, we can develop interests, but there's nothing at the sort of root level of our emotional and cognitive life that can change. And so mindfulness is a way of kind of dropping a little bit lower and realizing, so in this case, if you're feeling anxiety, there's actually a place from which you can just feel it, right? And be actually indifferent to it or anything else you could be feeling. Just notice that there's even an unpleasant sensation. First you can notice that anxiety isn't even that unpleasant. It's so close to excitement in its actual physiology that really the difference between excitement and anxiety is more or less just the framing. It's just the story you're telling yourself. If you felt these tingles and this slightly adrenalized response right before you're about to go on a roller coaster, that's part of why you're going on the roller coaster. You like that experience, right? But the fact that you feel that way when you're about to have an interview or you're about to walk out on stage, that's intolerable, right? So just dropping back and realizing the power of the framing is again, this is a skill that is a fairly esoteric one, but now many people are learning it. The secret's out, and it has immense utility, because then you can realize that the half-life of negative emotions is incredibly short. One, you can actually be psychologically free even in their presence, right? Your freedom and your well-being isn't even predicated on getting rid of the physiology, right? It can still be there, but if you're not continually thinking about all the reasons why you should be anxious, the physiology dissipates very, very quickly. And that's true for anger, it's true for anything that is classically negative. And so to come back to your question, many of the things that people think they want out of life, they either think are, or many of the ways they're keeping score about how good their lives are or aren't, they're not seen as, these are either, this experience is being delivered to them either based on the skills they have or the skills they've never thought to acquire, right? And so that's one thing I would add to the picture of the usefulness of skills.
I want to talk about the emotional control that you bring up. I think that's super powerful. When my wife and I were first married. My problem was I have a very slow fuse or a very long fuse. And so it takes a lot to get me angry. And that was actually a big complaint of hers. She'd be really annoyed. Something would happen, someone would cut in front of us in line, and I wouldn't freak out. And she wanted me to freak out. And she wanted me to like just bask in how unjust it was. And she would really lament that. And it just seemed so strange to me. But then when I got mad, I would stay mad. Yeah. And there were times I would stay mad 8, 10, 12 hours. And I was working so much at the beginning of our relationship. The only time that we really had together as husband and wife would be for part of a Saturday. And I would inevitably, she would say something, it would upset me, I would get pissed, and I would stay pissed the entire time. But then as you said, once you stop reinforcing it, which I would do, unfortunately, I'd be reinforcing it, then something would happen, it would change my neurochemistry, I'd forget, like, why was I so mad? Every single time, I was like, why did I just waste that time being mad? So I ended up writing myself this letter, and I gave it to my wife, and I said, read that to me the next time I get pissed off. And in the letter, I said, hey, me, it's me. I have no hidden agenda here as to why I want you to calm down, other than the fact that you know that if you end up being pissed for several hours, you're going to regret it every single time. And right now, I want you to laugh out loud. And for however long it takes, just laugh out loud. You know, studies show that you can't laugh out loud and remain pissed. And so I gave it to her, I got pissed, she read it, she only had to read it once. It was so profoundly transformational to see that just by laughing out loud, I couldn't stay angry, that it really helped me get control of my emotions so that I knew I can do what I'll call a state shift. I don't think I've ever heard you use that kind of language, but if I'm angry, I'm choosing to stay angry. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I hadn't found meditation at that point, so I had to sort of brute force my way to that. What can people do to learn to get control of their emotions?
Well, the first thing to realize is that they already have control. Virtually anyone watching this, I would expect, can do this under certain circumstances. So the one example I would have you recall is, I'm sure this has happened to almost everyone, you're in some state like that, you're angry, you've just gotten triggered by something, but then the phone rings, right? And the phone, you're getting called by somebody who, this is not someone for you to process your anger with, this is like a business call, or like you have to function, right? And it actually perfectly interrupts your state. You actually can just reset and have the conversation, and the physiology is dissipating very, very quickly there. Your attention is on something else, and you're just having to function. Now, of course, if it's a friend or your mother or somebody who you can complain to, well, then you'll jump on and you'll amplify this state because you'll have a reason to talk about it. So you can interrupt these states and simply put your attention on something else, and then it dissipates.